The Chair recognizes the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And the following weeks will no doubt be historic for the Energy and Commerce Committee. After years of debate on the root causes, impacts, and potential solutions to address global climate change, our committee will soon consider comprehensive legislation that seeks to reduce greenhouse gas emissions both home and abroad. Both the full committee chair and you, Chairman Markey, have worked quickly on a discussion draft which sets the market for action on climate in the House of Representatives. It's an understatement to say that all Americans and the entire world are closely watching how this debate unfolds. That's why I'm pleased that you have set an aggressive hearing schedule this week with distinguished panelists to learn more about the American Clean Energy and Security Act, or ACES, released shortly before the April recess. Since the draft's release, the Environmental Protection Agency has issued a finding that greenhouse gas emissions pose a threat to public health and welfare. If Congress does not act, greenhouse gas emissions could be regulated administratively without input from members that represent diverse constituencies nationwide. While I commend Chairman Waxman and your work, Chairman Markey, on the draft, and I hope to support the final product, I have serious concerns with the impact ACES may have on my constituents, the job base, and the overall economy. First, we must protect our U.S. energy-intensive domestic industries, including refineries, so we do not simply export those jobs abroad to nations without carbon controls and lax environmental regulations. I represent the Houston Ship Channel, a petrochemical complex that stretches along the Texas Gulf Coast and is home to thousands of chemical industry and petroleum refining jobs. These energy-intensive industries will be left vulnerable to foreign competitors not facing carbon regulations if we do not carefully craft transitional policies to prevent job leakage. We cannot allow the petrochemical and refining industries to migrate out of America. They are vital to our economy and to our national security. I want to thank Congressman Inslee and Congressman Doyle for putting forward a proposal to provide free allowances to certain energy-intensive industries regulated under a climate program. I urge the committee to provide ample allowances sufficient for all exposed industries, including domestic refineries, which will place our refineries on an equal footing with their competitors in the European Union, which are considered energy-intensive trade-exposed industries. Border adjustment policies must level the playing field in the global market for all trade-exposed products, and our export and import policies under the cap-and-trade program must not place our domestic industries at a competitive disadvantage. None of these proposals, however, can substitute for the need for a strong international agreement with binding carbon reductions amongst the world's largest emitters, including developing countries. Second, our transportation fuels policy must be based on sound science and avoid duplicative regulation and enhance our broader national energy security. The draft discussion includes a low-carbon fuel standard which does not reflect the consensus-based principles issued by the U.S. Climate Action Partnership and raises more questions than answers. Under the cap-and-trade program, refiners must already purchase emission allowances for all fuels produced, with the total volume of the nationwide emission allowances declining over time. Layering an additional regulatory scheme on fuels may be the least efficient way to reduce carbon emissions and must be weighed against the impact that the proposal would have on consumer gasoline prices. Third, complementary policies addressing renewable electricity and energy efficiency standards must reflect state and regional capabilities, avoid overlap, and not unduly burden low-income Americans with higher home energy bills. Mechanisms must be in place to adjust targets if energy prices escalate or if transmission capacity is inadequate. Fourth, a final proportion of allowances must be allocated for consumer assistance programs. Assisting with higher electricity prices is one piece of the puzzle. Effective rebate programs must also address higher gasoline prices as well as the price of all goods that rely on energy inputs. If our climate policy leads to energy supply disruptions and price spikes without effective remediations, consumers and voters will begin to question that policy, and they will respond. Finally, the overall design of the cap-and-trade program must be improved. Any final bill should include realistic emission reduction targets, more effective cost containment mechanisms, and enhanced carbon market oversight provisions. I hope to work with Chairman Waxman, Chairman Markey, and all the members of our committee and those on and other concerns to craft a climate policy that protects both our environment and our economy. Mr. Chairman, I yield back my time. Thank you.
Great. Gentleman's time has expired.